My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 33, and I built my skincare brand, Carter Bloom, out of late nights, maxed out credit cards, and quiet determination. I never had a safety net. My parents were teachers in Austin, kind but modest. I learned early that if I wanted a future, I'd have to carve it with my own hands. After years working in cosmetic labs, I quit and launched my own line, organic, sustainable, and local. It started with a $4,000 loan and a tiny stall at a farmer's market. Now, 5 years later, I had just signed the lease for our second production space in Seattle. The expansion was bold, risky, but finally within reach. The $110,000 sitting in my account? That was every saved cent, every grant, every reinvested dollar. It was my dream blooming. When my Aunt Regina sent out invites for our family's annual Cannon Beach retreat, I hesitated. I hadn't seen most of them in 2 years, but something in me wanted the closure, the pride, maybe even the peace. I arrived at the beach house just before sunset. The salt in the air, the soft crash of waves. It should have felt like a homecoming. Instead, it felt tense. Cousin Mia greeted me at the front steps with a tight hug. "You look amazing," she said, but her smile faded fast. "Just a heads up, Elise and Shane got here yesterday. Things have been awkward." Elise, my little sister. Once wild and impulsive, she'd changed after marrying Shane. We used to talk daily. Now, months would pass in silence. And Shane. He was all charm and ego, with the kind of arrogance that made you feel like you owed him something just for existing. I pushed open the door and heard his voice immediately, booming from the kitchen. "I'm telling you, buy in now and double it by Christmas. That's how real money's made." I stepped in. Elise gave me a half hug, stiff and quick. "Bex?" she smiled, calling me by the nickname only she used. But her eyes flicked quickly toward Shane. He was holding court, whiskey in hand, silver watch catching the light. "Oh, look," he smirked. "The entrepreneur's here. Still selling enough face cream to keep the lights on?" I smiled tightly. "Actually, we just signed a second lease. Downtown Seattle." He raised an eyebrow, scoffing. "In this economy?" The room shifted. Elise's shoulders shrank beside him. I knew that tone, that smirk, that subtle erosion of identity. I should have left then. I should have trusted the knot tightening in my stomach. But I didn't, because I didn't know yet that by the time I left this house, everything I built would be gone, and someone in this room was already plotting to take it. That night, dinner was loud with laughter and clinking glasses, but under the surface, something was off. Elise barely spoke. Her smile was tight, eyes darting like she was waiting for someone to say the wrong thing. Shane, meanwhile, held court at the center of it all, pouring wine like he owned the place. He was in rare form, bragging about flipping properties in Costa Rica, investing in a new crypto fund, dropping phrases like liquid assets and generational leverage, like he was on CNBC. Aunt Regina clapped politely. Uncle Don nodded along. Mia rolled her eyes across the table, mouthing, "Ugh!" I barely touched my food. Later that night, while everyone lingered on the back porch, I slipped upstairs to catch up on emails. The moonlight spilled into the guest room I'd stayed in since I was a kid. Familiar, safe, or at least it used to be. As soon as I walked in, something felt wrong. My laptop had been moved, only slightly. The screen was closed, but the charging cable was plugged into the wrong port. My mouse was on the opposite side of the desk. No one should have been in here. I sat down slowly, opening the lid. The browser history was wiped clean. My chest tightened. I wasn't paranoid. This wasn't just a misstep. I opened my security dashboard and scanned the login log. There it was. A failed login attempt, about 90 minutes earlier, from an unrecognized location just a few miles away. Then another. Then another. Someone had tried to get into my system while I was downstairs, helping with dessert. I didn't breathe. I just moved. First, I changed every password. Email, banking, company dashboard. Everything. Then I enabled two-factor authentication and logged out of all devices. I double-checked the security software I'd installed after the last phishing scare. Keylogger detection, remote login tracking, the whole thing. I locked the laptop in my suitcase. Then I locked the suitcase. But still, I couldn't sleep. Downstairs, I could hear Shane laughing. And Elise, quiet. Always quiet. My thoughts ran wild. Was it just a coincidence? Some kind of auto-update fluke? Or was someone trying to get in? Trying to take something? I told myself I was just being cautious. I'd built my company by being smart, by being alert. But I had no idea that the real breach, the one I couldn't see yet, had already begun. And by the time the sun rose, everything I'd worked for would be wiped out with a few clicks. I must have finally drifted off sometime after 2 a.m., heart still racing, mind still tangled in doubt. But the moment the phone rang, I knew something was wrong. It was Jordan, my operations director, calling at 6:17 a.m. "Natalie?" His voice was shaking. "The vendor transfer for the new lab bounced. All of it. The account says 0. I sat up so fast I nearly knocked the lamp over. "What do you mean 0? That's impossible." I double-checked, then triple-checked. Business account, savings account, both empty. No. I was already opening the banking app. My fingers trembled as I typed in the passcode. The screen loaded. Business account, $0. Savings account, $0. My throat went dry. I tapped into the transaction history. The last 8 transfers had cleared between 12:04 a.m. and 4:12 a.m., all to an unfamiliar account number. Over $110,000. Gone. Not a glitch, not a freeze, not a random hack from across the world. It was targeted, deliberate. Someone had known my credentials, my device, my network, someone inside this house. I grabbed a sweatshirt and bolted down the stairs. The kitchen was warm with the smell of coffee and toast. Morning light spilled through the windows like nothing was wrong. Except everything was. Everyone turned when I walked in. I must have looked like a ghost. Mia rose first. "Nat, what happened?" "My accounts," I said, barely above a whisper. "The money's gone, all of it." Elise froze. Her coffee cup hovered midair. Uncle Don blinked. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "I mean someone stole $110,000 from me overnight." Gasps erupted. Aunt Regina dropped her knife on the counter. Mia rushed to my side. I held up my phone with the account screen visible. These transfers were made between midnight and 4 a.m. from a verified device, with my password, my answers to security questions. Silence. The kind that chokes the air out of a room. And then I looked at them, one by one, until my eyes landed on Shane. He was sitting at the breakfast bar, sipping black coffee like it was just another sunny morning in Oregon. His expression? Neutral, cold. I stepped closer. "You were near my laptop yesterday. Were you in my room?" Before he could speak, Elise jumped in, too quickly. "What are you saying? Are you accusing my husband?" "I'm asking a question," I said quietly. Shane set his mug down with a clink. "Maybe your precious company messed up your transfer. Maybe Jordan dropped the ball." "If that's true, then you'll have no problem showing your bank statements," I replied. His jaw tightened. Just slightly, but enough. He smirked. "You know what, Natalie?" he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "Maybe we just needed it more than you." Time froze. I could hear the clock ticking behind me, the low hum of the refrigerator, the distant crash of ocean waves outside. But in the kitchen, silence. What did you just say?" I asked, barely breathing. Shane shrugged, leaned back in the chair like we were talking about the weather. "You heard me. We needed it more than you." Aunt Regina gasped. Mia's hand shot up to her mouth. Uncle Don stepped forward. "Shane, what the hell are you talking about?" Shane stood now, slow and deliberate. "You all worship Natalie like she's some sort of hero. But Elise and we've been drowning. She lost her job. I've had 3 investments collapse. The mortgage is a nightmare, but no one asks how we're doing. No one cares." I built that money from nothing, I snapped, stepping forward, while you were playing day trader on borrowed credit cards. He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You think this is justice? It's balance. You had extra. We had none. My blood turned to fire. You stole from me, from my company, from every employee who depends on that business. You didn't ask. You took. I had access. He said with a smirk. Doesn't that count for something? I turned to Elise. She was trembling now, her hands clutched together, eyes red. But still, she wouldn't meet mine. Elise, I said gently, did you give him my login information? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Shane reached for her shoulder. Don't say a word. That was it. I grabbed my phone. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Then you won't mind what's coming next, I said, calm and cold. Shane's smirk disappeared. What are you doing? Calling the police. He lunged, fast and angry, reaching for my wrist. Don't you dare! But Uncle Don was quicker. He stepped between us, pushing Shane back. That's enough! Mia pulled me behind her. Elise gasped and stumbled against the counter. I'm not letting this go, I said. Not this time. Shane glared, breathing hard. You won't find it. The money's gone. Buried. You'll never trace it. You sure? I replied, locking eyes with him. Because I've been through fraud before, and I learned something you clearly never did. And what's that? He hissed. I tilted my head, voice calm. I document everything. He blinked, just for a moment. And that's when I saw it. The flicker. The first crack in his mask. It happened less than 2 hours later. We were still in the living room. Elise had retreated upstairs. Shane paced like a caged animal, eyes flicking to the door every few minutes, arms crossed in simmering silence. I sat on the edge of the armchair, waiting. Not hoping, waiting. Then we heard it, a sharp knock, followed by a louder one. 3 seconds later, the door flew open. 2 uniformed officers stepped in first, commanding voices echoing through the house. Portland PD, everyone stay where you are. Behind them came a woman in a slate-gray blazer, flashing her badge as she entered. Natalie Carter? She called, scanning the room. I stood. Yes. I'm Detective Amber Lynn. We received an expedited fraud alert linked to your account. Your bank's cybersecurity team flagged suspicious access linked to a verified local device. We have reason to believe the perpetrator is here. Shane stepped back. This is a mistake, he said quickly. This is just a family argument. Detective Lynn cut him off. Sir, your name? Shane Doyle. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. Mr. Doyle, we have transfer logs, IP matches, and screenshots from bank security logs tied to your name. He scoffed. That proves nothing. I stepped forward. It's not just their logs, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. After a hacking attempt last year, I installed high-level security software on all my devices. Detective Lynn raised an eyebrow. What kind? Facial recognition on failed logins, keyboard tracking, screen session recording during remote or unauthorized access. I handed her the phone. Everything's on there. Footage, timestamps, exact device IDs. She took the phone, tapped a few times, and turned to her team. This is solid. Everything aligns with the bank's forensic report. Shane's voice cracked. This is a setup. No, I said, walking toward him, calm and clear. This is protection. I didn't set you up. You walked into a trap you didn't know I built. He laughed, nervous now, desperate. She's making this personal. It is personal, I said quietly. You didn't just steal money. You violated trust. You used my sister. You used me. Detective Lynn nodded to the officers. Cuff him. As they moved in, Shane turned to Elise, who'd come downstairs quietly during the commotion. You're just going to let this happen? He shouted. She didn't look away this time. Her voice was soft but unshaking. I let you control me for too long. I let you poison my family. I'm done. You think you're strong without me? He spat. Her voice didn't waver. No, but I'm stronger without you. And just like that, they led him out the door. No more smirks, no more charm, just a man caught in his own greed. The cruiser's red and blue lights faded into the morning haze, but their echo stayed in the air like a storm that had just passed. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Aunt Regina broke the silence with a whispered, "My God." Mia walked to me and placed her hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. "You did the right thing, Natalie. You didn't let him take it all." But I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at Elise. She stood frozen near the stairs, arms wrapped tightly around herself like she was trying to hold the pieces together. I walked toward her slowly. "Elise," I said gently, "you knew something." Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded. "He told me you'd be fine," she whispered. "He said it was just a temporary loan, that you wouldn't even notice." I exhaled, heart heavy. "Did you give him my security answers?" Her voice broke. "He pressured me. Kept asking about your passwords, your first pet's name, the street we grew up on. I didn't think he'd actually... God, I didn't think it would be this." She collapsed onto the bottom stair. I sat beside her. "You don't have to explain everything," I said softly. "But you have to stop letting him speak for you." Elise buried her face in her hands. "He made me feel small, like I couldn't survive without him. And when I tried to speak up, he'd twist my words, turn everyone against me." She looked at me with broken eyes. "I'm sorry, Nat, for everything." I nodded. "I know, and I'm not mad at you, but you have to make the next move." She wiped her face. "I will. I want out. I want to find myself again." That night, Elise moved into the guest room at my apartment in Austin. She filed for divorce the following week. Detective Lynn kept me updated. The charges stuck: fraud, identity theft, and coercive control. The judge denied Shane bail after evidence showed multiple attempts to reroute stolen funds through shell accounts. Jordan, my ops director, called me 2 days later. "You're going to get most of it back," he said. The bank confirmed at least 94% recovery through tracking and insurance. I let out the breath I'd been holding since Cannon Beach. The business would survive. But more importantly, so would I. And for the first time in years, so would Elise. Because the money was never the full story. It was about control, about silence, about power disguised as protection. And that morning, on those wooden stairs, Elise took the first step back toward herself. A month later, the new Carter Bloom Lab opened its doors in Seattle. Bright white walls, polished wood counters, lush green plants in every corner. It smelled faintly of lavender and lemon balm, our signature blend. It was everything I had dreamed of and more. But what hit me hardest that morning wasn't the ribbon cutting or the first test batch we ran through production. It was Elise, standing beside me in a pale blue sweater, clipboard in hand, laughing, really laughing, as she struggled to pronounce triethyl citrate on the raw material list. "You'd think I was trying to read a spell," she giggled, brushing her hair behind her ear. "You're doing great," I smiled, watching her eyes sparkle in a way I hadn't seen in years. She'd been working with us part-time, customer support and admin. Nothing heavy, just enough to stay busy, stay connected. But the change in her was night and day. The first week, she flinched at every sudden sound. The second, she started baking again, cinnamon rolls that tasted like our childhood Sunday mornings. By the third, she was cracking jokes in the group chat and suggesting new product names. She was coming back to life. So was I. Carter Bloom had survived the theft. Not because of luck, but because of preparation, evidence, and resilience. The security system I'd put in place had saved us. And the people around me, Jordan, Mia, even my exhausted lawyer, had helped me hold the line. Still, I would be lying if I said there weren't scars. I'd started sleeping with my phone locked in a drawer. I didn't open emails without double-checking headers, and I changed my passwords weekly. But I was no longer afraid, because I had faced the worst kind of betrayal, the kind that wears your sister's smile and calls you family, and I'd come out whole. Elise told me something one night as we folded product boxes in the studio, hands stained with lavender oil and cardboard dust. "You were brave," she said quietly. "You protected what you built. I want to be brave enough to rebuild myself." I looked at her, this woman I used to protect with scraped knees and popsicles, and said, "You already are." And she is. Shane pled guilty. His sentencing hearing is scheduled next month. The prosecutor says he could be facing 10 to 15 years. And while part of me wants revenge, a bigger part is just done. Done with his voice echoing in our lives. Done with the guilt. Done with fear. We're not victims, we're survivors. And more than that, we're builders. We returned to Cannon Beach one last time, not for a family retreat, not to revisit the scene of betrayal. We came to reclaim it. Elise and I arrived with a toolbox, paint samples, and a plan. Aunt Regina met us at the driveway with garden gloves already on. Mia pulled up minutes later with a car full of lumber, light fixtures, and way too much coffee. Uncle Don brought his old speaker and played Fleetwood Mac while we sanded down the warped porch rail. Someone suggested repainting the front door bright yellow. Elise picked blue instead. It was quiet work, but not silent. Laughter floated in and out. So did tears. We patched drywall where Shane once threw a plate during a fight no one talked about. We rearranged the living room so Elise wouldn't have to see the corner where he'd cornered her with his words. We changed everything we could touch, and maybe that's what healing looks like. Not erasing the past, but reclaiming the space it tried to ruin. That night, we lit a small bonfire behind the house. Just family, real family. The kind that shows up not because they're supposed to, but because they choose to. Elise stood beside me, wrapped in a wool blanket, holding a mug of tea like it anchored her. "I never thought I'd come back here," she whispered. "I thought this place would always belong to him." "Not anymore," I said. "It's ours now." She nodded, and then, carefully, she pulled a folded sheet of paper from her jacket pocket. It was a letter, one she'd written to herself, one she now fed into the fire. "Goodbye," she said to the flames, voice steady. As it burned, I felt something unhook inside me, some quiet thread that had held on too long. And in that space, something else moved in, peace. Before we left the next morning, we stood at the edge of the beach, watching the tide roll in. "You know," Elise said, smiling softly, "it's not the same ocean we knew as kids." "No," I said, "but we're not the same either." We turned toward the house, where the blue door gleamed in the sun. The past didn't vanish, but it no longer had the last word. Now, when I tell our story, I don't focus on what he stole. I focus on what we reclaimed. Because if you've ever had to cut out someone toxic, even when they share your blood, I see you. If you're still gathering the courage to say enough, borrow some of mine. Because family isn't who you're born to. It's who protects you when the storm hits. And blood? Blood doesn't entitle anyone to break you.